Thank you.
Thank you all for letting me speak to you for a couple minutes this afternoon. Because I am what stands between you and lunch, I am not going to speak overly long. But what I want to do is I want to tell you what I have learned in 1,336 days of working for Hillary Clinton, sort of sitting across the hall and down the hall from her. I want to tell you sort of 5 things that I've come to believe with all my head and all of my heart, roughly related to innovation, and share that with you over the course of about just the next 12 or 13 minutes. The first thing that I've learned is that there is a massive shift in geopolitical power that's taking place around the globe right now. Most people talk about shifts in power on a geographic basis. They say, oh yes, I know what you're talking about. Power is moving from the United States and Europe to Asia, or from the global north to the global south. I don't know whether that's true or not, and I will let other people discuss and debate that. But what I do know with near certainty is that in just about all 195 countries on planet Earth, there is a significant shift in geopolitical power. And that shift is taking place from hierarchies, like government, like big media companies, to citizens and networks of citizens. There's a massive shift in geopolitical power that's taking place right now, from hierarchies to citizens and networks of citizens. And connection technologies are facilitating that shift in power. Technologies that connect people to information and each other. The net, mobile, social, and other such things. I focus on this from the standpoint of political power and political change, though I would argue that it's actually no different in the context of business models. And I just want to give 3 quick examples for how I think technology is playing a role significantly shifting power. First, it's accelerating movement making. If you think about the revolutions that took place in the Arab world and what have you, I don't think that these were Facebook revolutions. I don't think that these were Twitter revolutions. I think people made revolution because of things like a lack of economic opportunity, a lack of democratic participation, frustration with ruling families, frustration with corruption, and high food prices. I think that that had more to do with why people made revolution. But one thing that it did do is it made the revolutions go faster. It accelerates movement making. It has made the world move much faster. So whether it's building a political party, whether it is building a revolution, any kind of political movement is now taking place much faster. The second thing is it enriches the information environment. Traditionally, when people got their information years ago, they got all their information from the one newspaper they read in the morning and the one TV news show they watched at night. Today, people get their information from dozens, if not hundreds of sources, and they get it on a repetitive basis throughout the day. So the second thing I see happening is enriching the information environment. And the third thing is we see more leaderless movements. There's nobody's face you're going to put on a t-shirt from any of these revolutions. Increasingly, we see leadership models look more like the picture on the right than the picture on the left. More like a web, more like the internet itself than like a pyramid with a single charismatic figure organizing and inspiring the masses. So the first thing I've come to believe is that there's a shift in power that's taking place both in business as well as in politics. The second thing I've come to believe is that there is basically now a war for the internet and there's a war on the internet. I think you saw this recently with the Gaza conflict. The internet is increasingly being viewed as a place not just of competition, but of conflict. In my own country, the Secretary of Defense formally designated the cyber realm as a realm of warfare. We have air, land, sea, space, and now cyber. So the second thing I've come to believe is that the internet, the cyber realm, is going to be one that's not just about putting cute pictures of cats. And it's not just going to be for posting pictures of grandchildren. And it's not just going to be for communication. It's increasingly going to become a tool of warfare. It's increasingly going to become a domain of conflict. And you're seeing this, both in terms of building and hardening the narrative in conflict, as well as the physical acts of conflict. That's the second thing I've come to believe with all my head and all my heart in 1,336 days on the job. Not that anybody's counting. Third thing, innovation. 40% of America's GDP, 40% of our economy, which is $6 trillion a year, comes from companies that did not exist 30 years ago. 40% of all of the economic activity in the United States comes from companies that did not exist in 1981. And what I believe is that if highly developed countries like Israel and like the United States are going to have economic futures that are as strong as our economic present or as strong as our recent economic past, then in 20 years from now, we have to be able to fill up this blank slide with the logos of companies that don't exist today. Israel and the United States have something in common. It is that if we do not continually innovate, then our economies will not be as strong in the future as they are in the present. Because we're never going to make goods the least expensively. We are not going to be global economic powers because of our industrial might or because of manufacturing. It's going to be because of innovation. The fourth thing, I think that the two greatest global challenges right now are global economic growth and global security. And I think the number one thing we could do to most address challenges around economic security and physical security is to more fully empower women in both domains. I've become a feminist in this job. Let's talk about economics for a moment. The studies are remarkable. The studies show that it is quite often the case around the world that women do 2/3 of the work for 1/3 of the pay while owning less than 2% of the land. There have been an extensive series of studies done by Goldman Sachs and others that say if we reduce the barriers to participation by women in the workforce, per capita GDPs in highly developed countries will go up by 9%. Think about how 9% increase in GDP is a big number. In developing countries like China, like India, many of those, particularly in East Asia, if they do the same kind of barrier reduction, their GDPs will go up by 14% by 2020. So all of us who are trying to think about how we're going to achieve the next generation of economic growth, the single best thing we can do is to create more space for women in the workforce and at senior leadership levels. I was in Pakistan recently, and it was a really tough time to be there. Of course, I can't think of a time when it's actually not tough to be in Pakistan. But the one thing while I was in Pakistan that gave me the most hope was I met a woman named Maria Umar from this thing called the Women's Digital League. And she was telling me a story of a company that she started. She says, I have a company. It's a for-profit company. We're making plenty of money. We have 80 employees, and they're all women. And they're in South Waziristan. They're in some of these rural areas that are controlled by the Taliban and other such things. And I said, well, what is your company and how did you do it? And it is an IT-based micro-tasking company. She said, we're doing it with all women because we can trust women more. And she said, so I'm employing women with laptops in these conflict areas throughout Pakistan. And I said, well, is there that much work around here? I look outside and, is there really that much IT work? And she goes, oh no, our clients are in Dubai, they're in the United States, they're in Israel, they're in South Africa. I said, well, where do you get these clients? She goes, we get 100% of our business through LinkedIn. So this young woman, Maria Umar, starts a company, quickly grows to 80 employees in some really tough conflict areas, and they're getting all of their business through LinkedIn, servicing clients all over the world. So I think that the economic case for more empowering women in our companies and in our workforces is undeniable. The second thing is on security. If you analyze the last 200 peace treaties that have been negotiated, the last 200, a majority of them have failed. And the number of women who are negotiators in the peacemaking process was 7%. 7% of all peace negotiators among the last several hundred have been women. This despite the fact that, in my opinion, women are natural peacemakers and community builders. And if you look at the most successful peace treaties that have been negotiated among those several hundred, you see a higher percentage of women, and you see that women have played a particularly prominent role. So if you look at the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, for example, in Northern Ireland, that achieved peace between Protestants and Catholics, women played a particularly strong role, and they played a particularly strong role in insisting on provisions related to reconciliation, victims' rights, and other such things which helped make the peace durable, helped make it lasting. So I think, look, if you care about the two biggest challenges in the world, which is the economy and peace, if there were one thing I could do, one thing, it would be to get a lot of these men out of it and get a lot more women into it. The final thing, number 5, the last thing before lunch, is I think we need to get out of the Grey Twilight. Let me explain what I mean by that. 100 years ago, the President of the United States was Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. And he said this. He said, "It is far better to dare mighty deeds, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in a gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat." At the core of this is a belief that we cannot be so pessimistic. We have, despite all of the challenges that we've had, we have to continue to be bold, even if it is likely going to result in failure. It is far better to dare mighty deeds, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in a gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. So with that, it's lunchtime. I want to thank you all for giving me just a couple minutes to allow us to insert myself into your conference here, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Since we've been all waiting for you all day, apparently, did you come just to see us?
No, I've got a busy trip. I was actually just in Lebanon, in Beirut, doing all kinds of tough work. I was just in Hebron and Nablus and Ramallah. I've had consultations with physically in Hebron, physically in Nablus, physically in Ramallah, physically in Jerusalem.
Right. Okay.
Having consultations with your government. I met this morning with the head of the Iron Dome program, and doing
the
a
Iron Dome program has many fathers. Who's the head?
Yair Ramadi,
Okay.
Director, Israel Missile Defense Organization. So yeah, no, look, I've been on the road for about 10 days and have had a busy schedule working in a variety of different domains.
So you must have missed that on Tel Aviv 3 weeks ago, because one of them landed like 200 yards out of this hotel.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously people in the United States were very focused on it, and we're very proud of the role that we played helping to put as much money as we did in so that the development could take place as quickly as it did. You know, there are going to be times in the relationship between the United States and Israel, there are going to be times where we agree, and there are going to be times where we disagree. But one of the things that I think is very good that we're collaborating on is on this Iron Dome program.
So you was Rahm Emanuel or not? I didn't get it yet.
So I've heard about this, but I didn't hear it. So, so I don't comment on things that I haven't heard yet because I've been too busy working.
Right.
I'm not watching TV right now.
Okay, so before letting you go, who's your next boss?
Who's my next boss? Well, my next boss is the same as my last boss, which is my wife and 3 children. Yeah. So beyond that, who my boss at work is, I feel like my boss at work is my assistant. She's supposed to be working for me, but I end up doing whatever she tells me to do. So we'll see.
So it's not going to be John.
I have no idea. No, I missed Barack's call last night when he was going to tell me.
All right, okay.
I'm joking.
We appreciate it. It was
Thank
a pleasure
you.
meeting you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.